lost 2 boundaries. What happened?
I don't know. They're out with Goldilocks trying to find some
the boundaries bears are on an adventure. Hello, 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 and welcome to Well Shit. It really is that simple. I'm Claire.
And I'm Serena. On this podcast, we help you to understand about your 12 universal needs, why they are currently not being well met,
how to meet them in ways that work for you, and how to consistently do so in quick, easy, and simple ways that fit seamlessly into your life.
We'll also help you to understand how doing so will have a positive ripple effect in literally every area of your life.
If you like what you hear, please support us on Patreon.
And enjoy the show.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
There's something always really weird for me about, as you know, we record in advance. So it's actually the 1st of September as we're recording this. There's something around, the second it moves into September, my entire being is oh, is it, it's fall now. It's no different than it was yesterday, Claire.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's just a different month. But there is something really about that. And I think especially because all the kind of preamble for Fantasy Fest is starting to happen here. I was at a volunteer event for one of the Fantasy Fest royalty that we are supporting as the Key West Ferry Game Mothers last night. And there's something all of a sudden there's a part of as someone who celebrates Christmas, all of a sudden, Christmas is on the horizon. I saw a friend of mine on TikTok shared, how many days, hours, minutes it was. I'm like, are you kidding me? This was a week ago. I'm like, no, stop.
I have a couple of those people. And
I love Christmas, but.
Yeah, me too.
And I like that.
That's the thing. Halloween, I get if you want to skip November, cool. We can go from Halloween to Christmas. I'm fine with that. But I'm kind of offended that we're talking about Christmas. There's another holiday here.
Being over here, I think it's different because, for a start, being in Key West, because Fantasy Fest, nothing happens until Fantasy Fest happens.
Well, and I feel on the island, there's something about September is locals month because most people aren't traveling. So it's very quiet, but there's
love it.
There's an energy stirring. This is when all of the creation, there's glitter in the air and sequins all over the floor.
Biodegradable confetti in the air.
Yeah. And we're just talking about my living room right now.
Right.
But there is something about it. I totally feel you the pumpkin spice latte tastes a little bit different because it's September.
And it's so funny because I think that over here, Halloween is nowhere near as big a deal in the UK as it is over here. It just isn't.
I wish you could have seen Halloween in the 80s and 90s.
I can only imagine.
I was just talking to my friend about it that the childhood of Halloween and what it used to be and what it is now because of the fucked up world I get why it is the way it is now, but
there's an inflatable jack-o'-lantern thing outside my neighbor's house across the street and it was there from August. I'm we don't have inflatable jack-o'-lantern things generally
so
in the
I kind of wanted to hug it this morning. It's very cute and I was like, oh, that made me happy.
I kind of like doing the pumpkin carving thing just because of my creative side. I kind of like that side of it. Although I don't know whether you saw
watermelon carving with the drinks.
Oh my God, I really wanted to do that.
Me too. One of the bars that we frequent down here, 22 & Co. Nice little shout out for our favorite sparkle bar. Everything comes with glitter, all the drinks, and then they glitter you and they glitter the bar.
We were in there last weekend and I had my bag on. I had a black bag and it was on the bar and I would look down. I was like, oh, it's no longer a black bag.
Well, when you walk in there, it really is one of my. It's so magical. It's like the butterfly conservatory. You walk in and if you look in the air, it's because there's so much glitter, it's pumping out of the AC and it's just sparkles.
It's glinting in the lights.
God, that place is so much fun. Anyway, they did, they always kind of do fun little twists on things. And they did a watermelon carving thing where, you paid, you got a watermelon, and then they took the guts of your watermelon and made you drinks out of them.
And they taught you how to make the drinks of them. They gave you all the carving tools and everything. I'm like, God, I kind of want to do that.
That's fun.
That sounds like fun. Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe we can do pineapples.
I'm kind of a little allergic to pineapple.
Are you?
Yeah, I just can't have a lot of it. Like, I wouldn't want to. I couldn't have a whole pineapple.
That was on.
It's not because it's not
on
a
the
big
clear
deal.
list.
It's not. I mean, and how often do like? Very rarely are you going to have a dish which is like
Mostly pineapple.
mountain of pineapple. You can, like, I can have a little bit of it and it's not a problem. I just can't, like, we can't buy a pineapple to eat because both of us have kind of a similar reaction to it. And it's like, I can have a couple of pieces without it causing any major, I mean, it doesn't cause major issues. It's just a pain in the ass.
Good to know.
But I think, I mean, yeah, I kind of feel like we should do the watermelon thing, like, just here in our living room. We've got, I mean, we could make some fun mocktails with it.
Ooh. All right.
Watch this space. So today we are on to episode number 2 in the Why Am I Depleted series. And this is probably, if you don't listen to another podcast episode, now bear in mind, we're over 100 now.
And I think of all the times that you said, if you listen to no other episode.
Well, I always mean it in the moment I'm saying it. Like, it's true. Like, I just think that this is such an important thing that when we're talking about needs, people don't think about.
And it seems so obvious too, like when we start talking
when
about
you break it down. But it's probably, I think this is more important than learning how to meet your needs. I think this is at least as important, if not more important.
Yeah, because without this, you really can't effectively meet your needs. So.
Yeah. So what we're talking about today is how meeting our needs is important, but discovering and managing what is draining our needs is just as important. As I said, if not more important, because there's no point. And this is basically where this body of work came from, was I was trying to fill a tank that had a massive hole. It wasn't like there were a few little pinprick holes in the bottom of my tank. I had a massive, huge hole in the bottom. So literally, as you poured it in the top, it just fell straight through out of the bottom. I don't think anything actually hit the tank on the way through, was where I was at. And if you go
back, were throwing it in a basketball hoop.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what I was doing. I'm trying to fill my basketball hoop with needs goodies, and it wasn't working. Like if you go back and if you listen to the episode where I tell my story about like how I came about, how the needs work came about, and what have you, how the universal needs came about, then you'll kind of understand what I mean by this. But I was at that point where I was really good at self-care. I was doing things to take care of myself, and nothing was having any impact. I was still exhausted. I was still drained. I was still depleted. And so often, especially people in the personal development space, is they focus on what should you be doing to take care of yourself. But they're really not focusing as much on what are you doing to stop where you are being negatively impacted and where your needs are being compromised.
And actually identifying that piece of it. Because I feel like a lot of times someone might try to figure it out, but they're trying to figure out the bigger situation. They're not actually getting into this is the thing that I need to work on, whether it be boundaries, whether it be capacity, whatever it is.
Would there be what?
Boundaries. I
was going to say, there was only one. Like, what the hell? Like, we lost 2 boundaries. What happened?
I don't know. They're out with Goldilocks trying to find some
the boundaries bears are on an adventure. And so if you don't figure this,
just the boundaries bears are off on an adventure.
I mean, it wouldn't be surprised. Oh my God.
It's a children's book in the making.
Well, no, what I'm thinking is that maybe we need to dress up as the boundaries bears. Just 3 of us. That's going about town with tutus. We could go to Tutor & Co as boundaries bears. I mean,
we could be security for the night.
Oh my God. No.
Oh my God, the boundaries bears at the bingo. Boundaries bears bingo.
I'm going to try and reel us back from the tangent I just took us off.
I'm running towards that goal. Like I'm like taking off my clothes. I put on my swimsuit. I'm gonna jump into that one. So you better act quick and get me back on that train.
So if we do not, boundaries bear is setting a boundary. There we go. This works. It's awesome. So if we don't figure out how to...
distracted dragon is going to fly away.
I want to be a distracted dragon. No, I can't be. One of us has to focus. Anyway, so the thing about it is that learning how to meet your needs is like filling a tank. And if you do not understand where your tank is compromised, what is draining from where your tank is being drained, where maybe someone has come along and like smashed into it and it's crumpled your tank, which has made it smaller, for example. All of these things, especially where there are people who are draining, they're like, someone's got their like the plastic tube, and they've stuck it into the top of the tank, and they're sucking the end to try and like get some of what's in your tank. Yeah, basically they're siphoning it straight out into their own tank. And we're going to talk about this more in the next episode, that specific scenario. But basically, if you don't figure out where the draining is happening, it doesn't matter what you put in because it's not going to stay there. And you're not going to get the benefit of it being there because it's not going to be there long enough in order to benefit. And so, yes, it is important for us to learn how to meet our needs. I mean, I would have thought after 108 episodes, you would understand that. Oh, and by the way, I didn't actually mention this. On our last episode, we hit 100 hours of podcasting.
Look at that.
There we go. Anyway, but we've been talking about this a lot. That's suffice to say, yes, it is really important for you to meet your needs. That is, we're not debating that. But unless you also know how to stop things from draining your needs, then the benefit you're going to get from learning how to meet your needs is going to be really, really minimal. And I mean, we've both had experiences in our life where it's like, oh, look, I'm focusing on meeting my needs over here and I'm not paying any attention to how they're being drained over there. You want to jump in with any of your examples?
I can't think of one. I can't think of just one off the top of my head.
Well, obviously, if you're not happy to share this, I will edit this out. But the obvious one that kind of comes to me is when we were talking about you transitioning to working full time with universal needs, and you were looking at moving out of your previous role. And that was, you were staying in the role because it met your needs to stay in the role.
Yep.
And their focus was on, look, but this is meeting my needs. I'm doing this because, and this is at the point where Serena knows about needs at this point. This is not where it's like 5 years ago where she was like, oh, needs. I've heard that word before somewhere.
Right.
Like,
I'm living it, breathing it,
yeah,
teaching it.
And it's like at that point still, you were so focused on, I need this need to be met, and this is the thing that's meeting my needs.
This meets my needs so well here.
And you were completely ignoring. And it was only when I remember the conversation that we had where I was like, okay, let's break this down for a second. Let's just check in. How well is this meeting your needs? And anybody who, like, if you listen to this well, you know that the questions are my jam. Almost as much as nuance. And that I will ask whatever questions. Like, I take myself out of the equation and I will ask all the neutral questions and be like, okay, where is this? Where is that? And I remember when we went through and I was like, okay, what needs is being there meeting for you? I'm like, well, it's meeting this need and it's meeting this need and maybe a little bit of that need. And I was like, how much is it meeting those needs for you? Just like roughly. And she kind of quantified it and I'm like, well, it's a little bit and a little bit over here. I was like, okay, now let's go through which needs is being there compromising you. And I remember there was one need in particular that when we hit it, you were like, oh, fuck. Because it was the main need that you were trying to get met through being there, right? You remember this?
It's my security need.
Yeah. And I remember you're like, but it's meeting my security need. And I was like, okay. Yes, it is. But it was draining her security need at a far greater magnitude than it was meeting it.
And it was meeting my security need through the financial aspect. It was a regular paycheck. I was able to plan. I had health benefits, all of those things, which are very big adulting security things. Except, like, with the exception of health benefits in a paycheck, and without the exception of the health benefits in the paycheck, every other aspect of my security need was getting pummeled. Mm-hmm. Waking up in the morning thinking I had to go to work. And I had a work environment, like, I've been in creator mode for a long time, and I created an area that was safe-ish for myself, and
as safe as it could be within the context of that environment.
Yes, and I loved the people I worked with, but there were a lot of things, and because it wasn't my office, the people that I was with every day, I was able to be like, no, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. That's not a big. I can just ignore it. I can ignore this. I can ignore this. Look, a paycheck. I can, and being able to pay your rent, that is important. And like, it's
kind of helpful.
Yeah, like, and it's
foundation function need 101. Yeah,
and that's not to discount the need to have that steady income, but it was like where it was compromising. There are thousands of other options for me to get a paycheck to be able to pay my rent for like that. Do not like. Just thinking about it, I'm getting anxiety thinking about how
deep breaths.
Yeah, like waking up in the morning and it was like,
yeah,
I got to go in. And then you got to prep like if you're finding that you have to prep yourself to go into situations, kind of when you have the capacity, dive into it and be like, all right, I haven't even gotten to work and I'm already like worrying on what's going to happen. Like, stress. What can I do to make this less stressful, to navigate this situation?
Well, and I think that if you're in that situation where you have that kind of anxiety, resistance, trepidation,
trauma response, and we talk about trauma. I mean, go back and listen to the episode that we're going to share in the comments. It was a trauma series, or have we done that? Or is that in the planning?
We've definitely done a trauma episode. I think we've done a trauma series. Did we?
Well, it's either in the show notes or it's coming soon.
We've had 108. Keeping track of these puppies is a little challenging.
But it was a legitimate trauma response.
And that's what I was about to say, is that if you're starting to feel those things, your needs are being negatively impacted, which means it's draining your needs. And if you go back and listen to the trauma episodes, if your needs are being negatively impacted, that is a trauma, even if it is a slight one, even if it is just a momentary.
But it's like mine was slight and sustained. It was little ones over a long period of time. And all of a sudden, when I looked back on it, when Claire and I were having the conversation, I'm like, wow, these little teeny things have grown into these monsters that consume me the second like I walk through the door and I clock in and I'm like, oh, fuck, there they are. Like,
well, and the thing is, it's all very well looking at them as teeny things, but when you have hundreds of these teeny things or thousands of these teeny little things, all of a sudden it doesn't feel like such a teeny little thing anymore. I don't know why I've got in my head, like I'm sure that there's been like a TV show or a movie where you've got these like individual little things, but they kind of come together and make this big monster that's all made out of like if you know, please drop a comment and let me know what I'm talking about, because I'm not sure right now. But like that's kind of what it feels like. And like to be in that position where you're doing something to meet a need, and then to find out that the very need that you are trying to meet through that vehicle is being compromised more than it's being met. I mean, I'm going to be honest. Normally, Serena has 0 fucks to give. There were a lot of fucks she gave during that conversation. Fuck. Like I remember it.
My face was just, And then when I came to the decision that it was no longer serving me to be in that position, even my husband was like, oh, thank God. Like, it's about time. And I'm like, and he had not voiced his opinion on it before. So it wasn't like I got blindsided. He was like, I could see. He's like,
sideswiped.
Thank you.
Yep.
When you're low on capacity, lazy language.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what's going on, we're switching the ableist language. The term that Serena used is ableist, so we can use sideswiped, which is not going to negatively impact people.
And it's that simple.
Yeah. Just that's what we're doing.
Switch.
Yeah.
He had mentioned before, he was like, oh, it's stressful. Like, are you okay? Is this worth it? But then when I finally did it, it was like, it's amazing how he could see how it was impacting those needs. And you put these blinkers on yourself,
Yeah.
like the horse blinkers. And it's just like, okay, just focus.
Focus on how it meets my needs. Focus on how it meets my needs. And it like, I mean, the obvious example from mine, which like follows almost the exact same trend, is like my last major relationship, where I was staying because of trying to get my security need and my love need met. I mean, just saying this out loud, like my entire body is like, really? That's what I was trying to do. And it was compromising, I mean, so many needs, but security and love need were being compromised probably more than anything. And when I kind of finally had that realization of like, oh no, this is not serving me anymore. When I finally ended the relationship, I remember people saying to me, oh, thank God for that. Now, I'd had people, like if you've listened a long time, you know that I had a dear friend who thankfully gave me that nudge and went, hello, can we, this maybe isn't what you think it is or want it to be or what have you. And she did it in a slightly nicer way. Like I was like, okay, yes. Wow. Thanks for pointing that out. Helpful. But when I finally actually like pulled the plug and was like, no, this is it. We're done. I remember people being like, oh, thank God for that. And I'm like, I thought you liked him. You never told, like, never mentioned anything. Never mentioned anything. And I'm like, okay, like same kind of thing of like, oh, wow, everybody else can see how this is compromising me, but maybe I haven't noticed. And like, if we don't plug these holes, I mean, I've spoken about like previous clients where they've been trying to meet, like if you go back and listen to the needs formula episode, we talk about this where it's like you want to make sure that how the way you're meeting your needs is meeting your needs way, way, way more than it is costing them. That's the balance that we need in order for it to be worth our while to do that. And the needs formula is kind of how we figure that out. But even if it's just equal, where it's meeting your needs and costing your needs in equal measure, the net result is zero. There's no benefit to you that, but you've lost time through investing in trying to do it that way. So you want to make sure that there is a significant. The problem is that for a lot of us, we're so focused on what we're trying to meet that we're not paying any attention. Like I've got this, I don't know why I've got all these obscure TV and movie references in my head, but I can't think what the actual thing is. I've got this thing in my head of like someone being distracted by like a cute little critter in front of them, and there's like this gigantic monster behind them, and they're not. There's like there's someone next to them normally going, hello, look behind you, and that's so often what we don't do. And we're so focused on this cute little critter in front of us, like, yeah, look, it's meeting my needs. Isn't this adorable? We're not paying attention to the monster that's behind us that's compromising them.
I think oftentimes the thing that we're focusing on is what's culturally and societally expected of us.
Expected, yeah. Expected or encouraged, yes.
Yeah, like we focus. Yeah. Mine was, okay, you have to have the career. You have to have the paycheck. Like,
yes, you need paychecks, but it was more, I think, the format of that, right?
And that's the thing. And like, there are other options to accomplish what I was getting from, like, to meet my security need. I can do that in a lot of ways that serve me. That wasn't, because it was in my, like, it's going to get better. It's going to fix itself.
And there's a huge amount of privilege in that. Like, so definitely. Like we're in a position where there were other options for us. So like that's, I just want to kind of name that. But I think you're right. I think that so often we're focused on the things that we're told to focus on. And we're not paying attention to the things that we've been kind of taught to ignore, which is like, and if you think about it in terms of the universal needs tree, like we're taught to focus on our survival needs, but in very specific ways. Like this is the way that you're meant to take care of your survival needs, which are the roots of your universal needs tree. It's the first three needs on the universal needs tree. And it's like, yes, you have to meet your security need, but you have to meet it in this way. This is the way you're meant to do that. Yes, you're meant to meet your love need, but you have to meet it in this way. You can't meet it in these ways. You have to meet it in this way. Because like when I think about this, I think about the fact that So oftentimes, like, there are certain kinds of relationships that are validated and supported, and there are others that are criticized or even demonized at worst. But I also think about the fact that we're not taught. There was an amazing article I read a while back about how, like, friendship is the new marriage. Like, how, like, you can get so much of what most people were seeking to get met through marriage through your friendships. And how a lot of people see that as like oh no, don't do that. You shouldn't do that. And I mean, we're work wives, like, and we're also best friends. But we get a lot of our needs met on the bonus side. Obviously, we take care of our base level needs for ourselves, but through our relationship with each other in ways that actually takes the pressure off our other relationships.
Yeah, very much so.
And so it's like, it's not like, oh, this is like, and I think so often those things are seen as a threat, where it's like, oh, well, if you, so often people think that if you're getting your needs met outside of your primary relationship, that is a threat to your primary relationship. Actually,
it's the healthiest thing you can do for your relationship. Any relationship should not be the entire basket that all of your eggs are in. Claire can't hold needs eggs. Yes,
that is in the program. I know where Serena's going with this. You're like, why is she talking about eggs all of a sudden?
If you keep all of your needs eggs in one basket, if I'm going to Joe, my husband, for everything, if he's my best friend and my confidant and the person that I vent to, and the like, if he's everything,
puts
like,
a lot
it
of
puts
pressure.
a lot of pressure on it, and it's like sometimes I need to do the things about him, and that's great to have somebody else there. And it's like, and I have multiple people who I can go to, that it's like creating these relationships that, like, it's like a community of relationships for yourself. And one thing that I think...
Well, that's what community is. Like,
see how that happened?
We're not very accustomed to it in our culture.
No.
But it is, that's what community is. It's about all of those different relationships.
And it starts at the base of meeting your needs for yourself. I think also there's this kind of perception that it's somebody else, like your relation, like to meet your love need, you have to be in a relationship for it. No, at the base level, you need to do that for yourself, and then the relationship is the sprinkles on your love.
Right, absolutely. And I'm realizing we're heading off on a tangent. I'm going to try and bring us back into the topic, which is that the reason I was talking about this is because we are supported in prioritizing our intimate relationship. We are not supported in prioritizing our friendship relationships. Like, a lot of the time I've heard people say, oh no, like, she comes first. Like my best friend comes first over my intimate partnership. And like, there are times in which that is appropriate. Like, it's like, but it's like all of it from a cultural standpoint, it's like, oh no, that this has to come first. And it's like, and that's how a lot of people end up in these situations where maybe their primary relationship is actually draining their needs, and then they end up cut off from their other relationships, so they end up stuck in that situation. And the same thing as Serena said, like, getting your security need met through having this kind of job in this kind of industry. I mean, how many people are told, like, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, like, my brain is so far outside of corporate life now. But like, at one point, like, that's what I wanted to, like, I wanted to go down that path as well. That's what we were aiming for, because that's what we've been told to focus on. So if we're focusing our energy only primarily on a certain type of way of meeting our security need, and a certain type of way of meeting our love need, and a certain type of way of meeting our value need, or a certain type of way, like, the problem is our tree ends up getting skewed, because it's only getting certain nourishment in certain ways, but also it's being compromised by those ways sometimes. And it's like, okay, I'm going to have this situation, and we spend all this time focusing on, this is meeting my needs, this is meeting my needs, this is meeting my needs. And we're not focused on how it's draining our needs. And we wonder why. This is why this is in the Why Am I Depleted series. Because people are like, well, I don't understand why I'm depleted.
Adulting is tiring.
Well, adulting is tiring, but that we don't understand when I'm depleted, because with like I know what I'm meant to be focusing on, and I'm doing the things I'm meant to be doing, but we don't realize that some of the things that we're meant to be doing and that we're focusing on are costing us more, as much or more than they're gaining us. And until we actually start to notice that and plug the gaps. So the question is, how do we plug the gaps? And one of the best ways to plug the gaps is...
Boundaries.
Those bears are back from their adventure, apparently. We want to make sure that we are putting appropriate boundaries down in the different areas of our life. Like I remember speaking a while ago to a client where they were in a position where they had, like, they were having all of their work, like all of the company's work almost, was being piled on them. And because they just kept making it work, it just kept happening.
I fucking hate that, because I'm a make it work person, and that used to happen to me. That's happened to me my entire career. Doesn't matter where. Like, I make it work.
Until she started working with the Universal Needs.
Now I make it work for myself, which is fantastic. But yeah, when you start to make it work, it's like, okay, like they can handle it, they can do it, and then that becomes the norm.
Right? Absolutely. And it's like and we have to be able to. And I remember I saw this video. I might mention this on a previous podcast episode, and I was just, oh no, just no. I think it was on TikTok, and this woman was saying, if you are in the first 5 years of your career, you have to be the first person in the building and the last person to leave. Now, the problem is with doing that, I'm not saying don't put the effort in. I'm not saying don't show up. But what I'm saying is, if you do that for the first 5 years of your career, you train yourself that is what normal work days look like. You also train the company that is hiring you and is that you are working for, that is how you are going to work. Changing that 5 years in it's not impossible, but it is really fucking difficult.
Same thing with eating lunch at your desk. Like eating through your work, I got into that habit, and it was like, then that became the norm. And then I felt like I wasn't getting enough work done when I did actually take my lunch break, because I needed my lunch break to recoup and
and it's like you get judged for leaving on time.
Right.
Or judged for taking your lunch break. The thing that used to piss me off was people used to smoke. They would get smoke breaks, but I didn't get a break, and there was no judgment over that. So I used to go and take fresh air breaks. Like, I had a friend who smoked, so she would go for a smoke break and I'd go for a fresh air break at the same time. I'm like, why shouldn't we? And that's the thing, is that by putting these boundaries down, we start to, because that's where the draining is happening. Like where we are, and like go back to the previous episode, where we are normally doing things beyond our capacity.
And that's boundaries with your... Ooh, that went down the wrong side. That's boundaries with others, with situations, and with yourself.
Yes.
Like, I think one of the biggest challenges for me was learning how to set boundaries with myself and keeping them with myself.
And it was like, yes. And what that ends up looking like is that if you are someone who is a quote unquote giving person, one of the ways that your needs might be being drained is if you are picking up your needs tank and watering everybody else's with what you've got in the tank, with no consideration for the fact that you are being drained as a result of it. And all of a sudden your tank's empty and everyone around you is fine. And you're like, I don't understand. Like, why am I so depleted? Because I haven't set good boundaries with myself, and that what's draining our needs might be us being generous to the point where we are moving into the selfless end of the spectrum rather than the self first. If you haven't gone and listened to it, I think it's episode number 2 where we first start talking about self first, and we also have a self first series. Self first is basically where you prioritize your needs in the minimum in ways that don't compromise other people or other people's needs or the needs ecosystem, and sometimes in ways that benefit them. But what ends up happening is that you end up like like scooting to that selfless end of the spectrum. Now, we know from that series, selfless is not about everybody else. It is a way of trying to meet other needs that we're not consciously aware of. So what you might be doing that is like, oh, look, let me give everything to everybody else because then they'll meet my love need.
Or in hopes that they'll give it back, which often doesn't happen.
Well, that's how we believe that our love need's going to get met often, is like by other people doing it. So if I give to everybody else, they'll give to me, so my love need will be met. Well, how about you just meet your love need for for yourself?
And
so
in the way that feels good for you, because...
And then any surplus you have, then if you want to give that to other people where you're not compromising yourself, you're not depleting yourself by doing it. And this is the thing that people don't understand, is that this concept, the reason we called it self-first, is because this belief is that if we take care of our needs as a priority, that is a bad thing. But the reality is, if we don't prioritize our needs, we can't be generous with other people because we've got nothing to give if our needs are depleted. By taking care of our needs and prioritizing our needs, we get to the point where we can give. I mean, it was funny. I remember I had a conversation with somebody who didn't know me very well, who thought they knew me well, or did not know me very well, maybe a month or two ago. And they said to me, oh, I can see like you're such a giving person. You must spend all of your time feeling depleted. I'm like, okay, have we met? No. I literally teach how to not do that. Yes, if you met me 10 years ago, that would have absolutely been, well, probably 12, 15 years ago now, that would have absolutely been the truth. But by taking care of my needs, I can give without depleting myself. And that is a far more generous place to give from, because you're not trying to go, oh, let me give this to you, so you'll give it back to me. So I'll give it back to you, so you'll give it back to me. In which case, no one really is actually getting very filled up at all. We're just like moving it from one person to the next, rather than taking the time to actually cultivate our tank. Now, if you think about it in terms of the tank, by learning to meet your needs, you're basically plugging your tank into the mains. Like, you don't have to worry about like topping something. Like that action of meeting your needs is ensuring that you have this kind of connection to the source of what it is that we need, rather than being this like, oh, I've got to wait for so-and-so to put a certain amount in, and so-and-so else to come in and put it out, and I might put a little bit in, and what have you. And from that place, I mean, I think I mentioned this on a previous episode. I often, when I first started talking about needs, before all of this existed in this current form, I always used to talk about needs in the context of like, most people are, if you think about needs in the context of water, and most people relate to their needs like they've been walking through the desert for their entire lives. And then someone comes up to them with a thimble full of water and goes, what will you do for the thimble full of water? And chances are you'll do anything at that point, because it is your very survival. Now, if you are plugged into the mains and you've got a little squirty gun thing on your, like you've got a little backpack on that's plugged into the mains, that you've got a little hose running, and you've got your little gun, which means that you can fill your cup up anytime you want, and someone comes along and goes, what will you do for the thimble full of water? You go,
do you need a cup?
Like, do you need some water? Like, I got plenty. Like, hey, like I can top you up. And I've still got plenty as well. And that's kind of the mentality, is that when we stop our needs from being drained and we take care of our internal resources, from that point we can give more generously from this, rather than from this place of like, I need to take care of this person, so they will take care of me because I don't have any other way of getting those needs met.
Cup overflow is here is the spillover, rather than I have one drop, you need it more than I do, because that's never like.
Or if I give you this drop, then maybe you'll give me 2 drops back at some point. So, but if I don't give you the drop, then you're going to disappear, and I don't know how to get any more drops. So the boundaries thing is really important. And like, if you haven't listened to it already, go back and listen to it. We've got a whole series on boundaries, which is great for this kind of thing.
And you can guess there's 3 of them. Boundaries.
Oh, is that why so what's the reason we do 3 of every other episode? Every other series?
It's the magic number.
Oh, it is, apparently. So boundaries is a really good way. And as Serena said, it's not just managing our boundaries with others. It's not just managing our boundaries in situations. It's really managing our boundaries with ourselves, because so often that draining is happening either because we're not consciously aware of it. Like if we're consciously aware of it, okay, we can put a boundary down, or we can manage how that's happening. Like if somebody is siphoning off our stuff out of our tank, we're going to get into that more in our next episode. But sometimes it's that boundary with ourselves where it's like what is draining us is the fact that we are not taking care of our needs, but we're trying to give to everybody else in the process. So boundaries are really the key between having our needs being drained and stopping our needs being drained. Now, it's important to say, just because your needs aren't being drained doesn't mean to say they're being met. So it's not that I've stopped everything from draining my needs, I'm good now. Like now I've stopped everything from draining my needs. When I do things to meet my needs, I get to feel the benefit of that. And I don't have to worry about it being siphoned out or draining out or pouring through my basketball hoop or whatever it is. The other thing to be aware of with this is that when we put these boundaries down with other people, it can feel a little confronting. And it is important to recognize at this point is that sometimes that draining is happening because we are meeting other people's needs. Now, it is not about when we stop doing that in the context of adults who are capable of meeting their own needs. Obviously, we're not talking about dependence, but if we stop doing that, we're not causing harm. Nuance.
I said no nuance on that.
No nuance on that one. There is nuance. We're just not talking about it right now. Sometimes that can feel confronting to those people because it can feel like that you're harming them by all of a sudden stopping meeting those needs. Go back and listen to the episode. I think it's actually in the Self-First series on the difference between harming other people and just not taking responsibility for meeting needs that were never your responsibility in the first place, or something like that. I think it's a little bit shorter of a title than I've just said, but you kind of get the gist. So it's really important to recognize that by doing this, we create a situation where we are going to be able to be more resourced. So stopping what is draining our needs is one of the ways we can build our capacity. Go back to the last episode. Yes, we want to meet our needs, but we want to stop our needs from being drained. That is going to mean that our capacity is going to at least stay where it is. But when we then meet our needs, our capacity is going to build at that point. If we don't stop the draining, then the capacity is not going to build, even though we're doing this stuff. And if we're low on capacity and we're doing stuff to build our capacity, we really need the benefit of that. We don't want it to just kind of disappear again afterwards. So yeah, it's really important to recognize that I can't impress upon you the importance of this. This has been the thing that was the biggest game changer for me. Yes, we want to learn how to meet our needs. Yes, it's important for us to get this, but I didn't realize, I think that's the thing. I didn't realize just how much my needs were being drained and compromised in almost every area of my life until I understood this, until I started to think about it. And I was like looking at, there are friends who I don't have in my life anymore because I tried to set boundaries and it wasn't a fit. So it ended up where they've kind of gone further out on the relationship orbits. Work was draining my needs, not this work. Although when I first began this work, I wasn't necessarily approaching it in the most need supportive way. That has changed now.
It's how we got here.
It's how we got here. Yeah. But like work was like, different kinds of relationships in my life were like, I wasn't thinking about like even fun things. Like even like, I was like, I'm going to go out because it's the going out and being social meets my needs. If I don't have the capacity to do that, that drains my needs to do it.
It actually feels worse. You're like, oh, I went out and I may have had fun, but I feel like crap or whatever. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I think what surprised me most about learning this for myself, and I actually have an example that doesn't have to do with me, and I know Joe loves when I share stuff about him without his knowledge, but
sorry, shh, Joe, cover your ears.
Right, earmuffs, babe. But how happy you can be with different tweaks in life, and I'm gonna go into the job thing again just because that's what this example is, but how resourced, like, I'm just going to tell the story because my husband was in the military for a long time, and then he went into diving, which is a very intense line of work because you are keeping yourself alive along with a bunch of people on vacation.
Especially down here with the kind of tourists we get.
Yeah.
Not necessarily always safety focused.
No. And then he was working at the airport. He did security there as a TSO, which is like the airport security when you're checking your not checking your luggage, going through security and whatnot. So they were all very intense, very structured positions. And he was just feeling a whole bunch of different ways about these like careers and they were good jobs, and they were career type of jobs. And he's just like, something's not fitting. And he was drained and he was depleted and his needs were really not met well. And there were many things kind of contributing to that. But one of the things, he's just, every day he was going somewhere and he's like, this isn't doing it for me. Like, and April 1st one year, April Fool's Day, he found a random posting on Facebook about, hey, there's this job. If you're interested, call me on this day. And it was
a really obscure description.
Like, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, it was like generic.
There is this job, not saying what this job is. It's this amount of days a week and call this number. And Joe's like, all right, let's just see what this is. And it happened to be for a daytime DJ at a gentleman's club. Joe is now in his favorite position in life, which is a daytime DJ at a gentleman's club. It's a different setting. I know people are probably like, what?
It's very different.
It's a very different setting.
But it really suits him.
It suits him. He's in a little hole. He doesn't, like, he could see what's going on, but he usually chooses not to because he reads a book. He plays music he likes because of, like, the situation. There's not usually many people in there. So, like, he gets to meet his needs now through his job. And there is rarely a day he comes home where I'm like, how's work? He's like, oh, it was slow. But there's never like that. Oh, God. So depleted, like the impact, like every
when
job.
He came back from some of those other jobs, like it would be like, oh God, this has happened, or it was so stressful, or like, I mean, I've heard some of the stories from some of these.
The fucking airport, oh my.
Right. Well, and also the diving, like being out on the boat, like some of the situations that he has been in have been really tough and really difficult to know how to navigate. And now he doesn't worry about any of that. He goes to work. He does what he does. He gets his paycheck. And what's really interesting is that this was a situation where people were worried that his needs were going to get compromised because Serena wasn't going to be okay with him working there. And Serena's like, no, you do you. Like, if that works for you, great.
I mean, I love going to see him at work because you walk in and he's jamming. He is happy as a fucking clam. Like, I don't care what you're doing. You're able to contribute the amount that we've chosen contributes to our life.
Right.
You're happy. Like,
you're not stressed in the way that you were before. And that's the thing, is that it's not like he's like coming home at the end of the day going, oh my God, I am so fulfilled.
Right.
But what he's doing is he stopped the things that were draining his needs by the other things. And the difference that has made has been profound.
And like, at first it was kind of like, I would be like, oh yeah, he's a daytime DJ. Like, and there was like this layer of like judgment on the whole thing, and it's like, because that's not a career.
Like, daytime DJ is not normally a career that people focus on,
right? And he caught some flack about it from some people who thought that like, oh, this is what you're doing with your life, and it's like, doing something I love that makes me happy, that pays the bills,
right?
I could give a fuck less what you think about this. And now it's like, I'm excited when he tells people, and then they always look at me and they're like, are you okay with it? I'm like, yes. Like,
right.
And there's a lot of things that have gone into me being okay with this and how we navigate our relationship. And me, it's because I meet my need. Like, I don't need that. So I get sprinkles from him, but you want to go work? Go fucking work there. I don't care. Like,
and that's the thing. As long as, and this is the thing, is that there's so much judgment about so many different things that people do and don't do in our society. And the thing is, as long as you are doing something in a self-first way, as long as you are not harming yourself or others or the needs ecosystem, doesn't fucking matter.
Mm-hmm.
That judgment is irrelevant.
I much rather me not be in my corporate setting anymore and have people think like, oh, she's, I mean,
like a podcast. That's cute. Happens all the time.
That right there. Oh, I thought you guys just podcasted.
Life would be a lot easier and less busy if that's all we did.
Right? And I think that's the thing. Like, look where judgment is draining you. Look where expectations is draining you. And really kind of like, and I'm not saying this is an easy thing that you can just be driving in the car and be like, okay, where is judgment draining my life? Because a lot of this stuff, when you really realize it, it's kind of deep, because it's a lot of the times the people who are closest to you, it's their judgment that's in your brain. And a lot of times it's your own. It's your own judgment. It's that subconscious. And
it's the conditioning that we've received that is creating an internal judgment. And it may not be that the judgment itself is draining you, but it may be that the judgment is keeping you from making changes that would stop things from draining you or create situations in which you're not being drained in the same way.
Yeah, we have to be careful of the conveyor belt of life. Claire talks about it, and it's like, it's supposed to look
this and
like
this and this and this and
you
this.
go to school, you go to college, you get a career, you get a relationship, you buy a house, you get married, you have a baby, and this is what it's supposed to look like. Why? Because somebody said this was what it was supposed to look like, and we all just kind of...
And Serena and I are like taking like a sledgehammer to the conveyor belt, and we're like, nope, I don't like this bit, I don't like this bit. Why is it going in a straight line? Wiggly lines are far more fun. Let's head this way. We could do options. You could have little forks in the road. We could go this way, we could go this way, we could go this way.
Let's put a loop-de-loop in.
Yeah, I was just about to go upside down at one point. And that's the thing, is that so often the judgments are keeping us in these places where we are and our needs are being drained. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you stop the judgment? Like, kind of thing. Like, what do we do about that? The key thing is, the reason that the judgment affects us, both our internal judgment and judgment of others, is a lot of the time because there is a part of us subconsciously that is believing that what other people think about us and what we think about ourselves, but in this kind of very limited view versus what we actually feel about ourselves, that we need that in order for our needs to get met. Like, we have to conform to the way that everybody else says that we have to do things in order for our needs to get met. Because if we don't, then our needs are going to be compromised in some way. And this is the thing, is that, so the way to be able to release the hold that the judgment has on us, both our own judgment and the judgment of others, is by meeting our own needs and consistently meeting our own needs and knowing how to creating a practice, which is what we teach in the program, for how to keep our needs consistently met. Because if we know our needs are going to get met no matter what, like, I mean, there was a point in time where what everybody else thought of me was like a defining factor in whether I did or did not do something. Now, zero fucks to give, generally speaking. I'm like, if Serena has a viewpoint on something I'm doing, or someone like whose opinion I really value has a perspective, I want to hear that perspective. But unless I agree with it, or unless they're showing me something, I'm like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you for that. I'm going to factor that into my decision-making process. The reason is that now my needs are met. I don't need other people's approval to feel valuable, to feel validated, to feel acknowledged, to feel good about myself.
I used to hide my weird to meet other people's needs. Mm-hmm. You know how fucking draining it is to hide as much weirdness as that? Like, I am...
And yes.
Nuance.
And nuance. You were hiding your weird to meet other people's needs in the hope that that would actually meet your needs. So it was a vehicle for trying to get your needs met. And you're right. How draining was that?
It was constant work. I'm a fucking weirdo. And now I embrace it. And
yes, we are.
And the weirdos, like, once you let it out, they like swarm, and it's
they
like,
find you.
Oh, look at all of us. Like, and you get weird together, like in whatever weird ways you want to. But like, there's a freedom of identifying what's draining you and then finding a way to make whatever it is work. Like, there are usually, I mean, there's so few times that there's not at least an option. We may not like the options. It may be this or this, but it's always good to give yourself the, like, if you're feeling something, you're like, oh, like, I'm just, every time I have to go to this situation, I feel this. Like, I feel that drain. What is it about that situation? Is there a way I can do this? Is there a boundary I can put in? Can I tweak something? Do I need to just extinguish this situation from my life?
Right. And the precursor to that, the thing that makes this easier to do is that there's a part of us that is afraid of doing that. Because we're afraid if we're going to set boundaries that people aren't going to like us and they're going to stop meeting our needs. Or that we may have to deal with difficult situations or navigate some confrontation at work maybe, and like we're concerned about that. The precursor is, if you learn how to meet your needs prior to this, the good thing with the situation that Serena was in terms of her work situation, while she wasn't aware of what was going on needs wise in that situation, once she became aware, because her needs were already met and she knew how to keep them met, it meant that making the changes felt far less scary because she wasn't afraid that by making the changes that her needs were going to get compromised. It might have changed how they were met, which it was. But the thing is, if your base level is taken care of and you know it's going to continue to stay taken care of, which is why, we need to make sure we're taking care of the survival needs. So like for a lot of people, if the thing that brings in the paycheck is not working anymore, for a lot of people, we want to find something else that brings us in a paycheck in order to make that change because we know the need is going to stay consistently met. Same is true with our other needs as well. We want to make sure that if our needs are going to be constantly met, it means that making those changes is far less confronting and far less scary. And as a result, it makes it easier for us to do. It doesn't always make it easy, but it does make it easier because we're not worried about the impact. And this, I'm not suggesting that you're sitting there going, well, I can't do that because I'm terrified about what's going to happen to my needs if I do. Like that's probably not what's happening, but subconsciously, that's a part of you that's probably, and that's the reason the anxiety kind of kicks up around these sorts of situations. But by learning how to meet your needs and supporting yourself prior to that, then what you can do is you can then figure out how to make those changes in a way where the impact to you of those changes is going to be minimized. Anything you want to add before we finish up?
We got another one in this series.
We have another one. Come back because the next one is one that we get asked about quite a lot. So we will see you next time for that episode. Between now and then, remember to stay safe. First of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I missed that part. I'm like, hold on a second. There's normally something that comes before that. But we will be back next week. And in the meantime, remember to stay safe, to take care of yourself, and to continue to meet your own needs. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye, friends.
That's it for today.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe, rate, and give us a written review,
as it will help more people find us. And remember, meeting our needs is important. Discovering and managing what is draining our needs is just as important, if not more so.
Well, shit. It really is that simple.